for being here. Hey, besties and bosses, happy Tuesday. I've got Instagram with us as well. I'm super excited to hang out with y'all. I'm back in town. I missed hanging with you last week. I'm always live on Tuesdays, and it's a little funny not being live one week, but as many of you know, because I've been talking about it, I was in Paris for the week, and I'm back. I'm a little jet lagged, and I picked up a cold. I never get sick, and I picked up a cold, so I sound a little nasally, but got lots of energy and very excited to chat about today's topic. I don't know who's just joining. We're just getting started. Thanks for being here. Hey, Miss Debbie. Hearts to you. Nice to see you. Nice to see all y'all. So today's topic, this was kind of inspired by my trip. It came up on the trip coming home, and I think it is an important one. So the title, I'm sure as you can see, is what it really means to love your business and why this matters for next level income and impact. Because I think there are a lot of confusing things floating around online in terms of loving your work and being happy and in terms of ease and flow in business. And I think sometimes the confusion around these terms can do more harm than good and can cause us to sabotage ourselves in business without even meaning to, thinking that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And I want to break this down a little bit and talk about what it actually means to love your work, what it means to love your business, and how this is connected to actually making more income and having a bigger impact, and why this isn't so important, and why I think this gets confusing. Where this came from is I was in Paris. Paris was amazing. I had a great fucking trip. I loved it. We had such a great time, and I'm also really happy to be home, and I'm really happy to be back working. I love my clients, I love my work, and it was this really interesting thing. I talk a lot about build a business you're wildly in love with that makes you money. And I was sitting here thinking, oh, I'm like really walking my talk, I'm doing my thing. And also, like, that's a little confusing because I was just in Paris. And isn't Paris supposed to be the amazing thing? Or does that mean I didn't have a good time in Paris? Does that mean my trip wasn't good enough? Or does that mean that I'm lying to myself? Or does that mean that, like, what does that all actually mean? And it just made me realize how much confusion there is around that, and how sometimes I think on the opposite side, when someone says something like that, it's like, yeah. So either you're bullshitting about your trip and that wasn't good, or you don't really love your work and this is just something you say because it sounds really good in a message. So I want to break all of that down because none of that's true. None of that's true and all of it's true, and talk a little bit just more about these concepts and then how they apply to our business. Hey Affinity, nice to see you, good afternoon. Hey Robbie Hollywood, thank you all for being here on the Instagrams. I've got so many things I want to say around this, so let me know if this is all making sense, because you know when you have this idea in your head and it feels like, I want to share this with the people, I want to share this because it feels so important, and there's like a million things, I want to make sure this is all landing. So I've broken this down into 3 parts. Let's talk first, though, about the concept of loving our work and happiness and why I think this gets confusing. I think when we hear loving our work and when we hear being happy in general, especially in the online space, I think the concept of that is, especially, and just even the term of ease, let it be easy, let work be easy, let business be easy. I think what many of us equate that with is not doing anything, feeling really comfortable, sitting on a beach, working on a laptop. Maybe that isn't even a thing anymore, but I know when I started in the online space, it was like laptop lifestyle. I think happiness, sometimes we equate that with making lots of money, buying lots of stuff, like retiring really early. I think sometimes it's almost like the idea of running away from something, like we're leaving something we don't like, and that's what happiness is. Here's the deal with happiness. I don't know if any of y'all have read this book. I'm pulling it out because I'm going to butcher his name. It's I'm going to say his name's wrong. It's a really great one if you haven't all read it. He's done a lot of work around flow and where we get happiness from. For my creatives, for my entrepreneurs, I think this will speak to you. Flow is if any of you have ever experienced flow, it's why I loved acting. It's why I love coaching. It's why many of us love writing and love creating. It's when we're in the zone. It's when we are so focused and time seems to like fall away, and 3 hours feels like 5 minutes, and we're like in the zone, and like all things are just firing. Hey, Miss Kelly, that's the concept of flow. And a lot of us, I think, especially as creatives and entrepreneurs, that's what we're craving. And that's where I think a lot of us derive our sense of fulfillment and happiness from. Here's the really interesting thing about flow, and the way, again, I'm only doing this because I cannot pronounce his name. I probably should have like Googled the audio version of it. We're not even going to try on that. I studied this in college as well. This is like one of my favorite topics. What's really fascinating about this is what creates a sense of flow when we tap into flow, when we tap into happiness, when we take a look at the people who are talking about loving their work and happiness. None of it is from sitting on your ass and doing nothing. A lot of it usually comes from concentrated efforting, which is like the opposite of what we think about in terms of ease and flow when we hear the word flow. A lot of it comes from challenge, from having goals that are quite difficult that we're working towards. And it's what we feel on the other side of achieving those goals. I think a lot of us think, I'm going to start a business, and the happiness, why I'm going to love it is because I'm just going to be rolling in money and I'm not going to have to do anything. And here's what's, again, really fascinating about that. If you think about that for a second, and then you take a look at the people in our space or at people in other spaces who are quite successful and who claim to love their work, have you ever noticed that none of them are retiring? Like, most of them are continuing to want to grow and do more work because we actually derive our happiness through challenge, through what happens on the other side of challenge, through achieving a goal. The reason we like board games is because they're challenging. The reason we love our business is because it is work that's aligned to us and we're really passionate about it. We get into the flow, and it's that satisfaction that happens after creating or achieving or doing something. The reason, I was talking with a girlfriend about this, I think babies are a great example. The reason so much of raising children, I think so much enjoyment and happiness comes from that. I don't think anyone who's a parent would say that that's easy or that you sit around doing nothing and it's like a picnic in the beach. And yet it's the challenge, it's the I don't even really want to use the word effort, but it's solving all those problems and being in the moment, in the flow, in the presence of that creates the happiness. Even when I think about my trip in Paris, it was amazing, y'all. I had the best time ever. And on a micro level, I got the worst blisters ever. We were walking 10 miles a day, and I was kind of at some physical pain. And I think it's really easy to see that and think that could ruin a trip, versus some of those little funny things were actually part of the challenges to overcome that gave more happiness, because afterward I felt so triumphant to have walked 10 miles or to have done something different that felt a little challenging. We got lost one day, and there was this strange happiness on the other side of it when we figured it out together and were bonded together. And that was equally as happy as sitting on the park floor at Versailles having a picnic. And I'm a little all over the place with this topic, but I swear I'm going to bring it all together for y'all. Here's what's interesting even about that picnic moment on my trip, and this relates to what we're talking about here. And I say his name again wrong. He talks about this in this book a lot as well. That something like a picnic, having wine, having bread and cheese outside Versailles, that seems like something that is very much our general idea of happiness and not doing anything and kind of ease and comfort. And I think part of the reason that was so enjoyable is it came after a bike ride, and it came after, it was a break. I hadn't taken a trip in a little while. It was something that came as a result, it was something that felt, I don't want to say earned, but it was something on the opposite side of doing work. And I'm saying this because doing work, showing up, following through, gets a really bad rap in our space, a super, super bad rap in our space. And it's don't hustle harder, and I'm not about hustling harder, but it's we hear the idea of doing work and showing up. To be in the online space, that is bad, and the whole idea is to work 4 hours a week and to do as little as possible, and otherwise you're hustling harder and pushing, and you are not happy. And I think they're not even the same thing. We actually derive happiness from aligned action. And I think that is very different from pushing and from burnout. It's that aligned action, that's where flow comes from. Happiness comes from doing things, from having a goal, from efforting in a way that is aligned towards what we want. That is where that sense of flow and happiness comes from. And so when we talk about loving your work and loving your business, the reason I'm so excited to be home, I love being in flow on a coaching call with my clients. I love sitting down and having the challenge of trying to create content. But it's not like it's so like I'm sitting around doing nothing. I think that's what we think happiness is. And the reason I want to bring this conversation to the table is because there's so much online that is the opposite of this. And what I find happens, or I know happens because clients will bring this to a call, is we're then talking about building a business you love. We're talking about how can we make this feel good and making this aligned to you. And a client will say, well, we'll just use content as an example because I think all of us are creating content of some form. And in the moment, it feels challenging, or it feels like maybe it feels uncomfortable to show up online. And they will think then that they're not supposed to do that thing because it doesn't feel good and it's not making them happy in the moment. And this is where I'm like, no. You gotta understand, this is actually the pot of gold. This is where you find your happiness. In this discomfort, not only is that where we grow, but in this challenge, that's where the happiness is found on the other side. And when we talk about making it easy and doing what you love, it's within this context, finding a way to make it fit you so it is aligned. So let me know if this is making sense, because I'm like riffing here, and I want to make sure this is landing for you all. So with something like content, it's not about let's find a way to avoid, let's find a way to be comfortable, let's find a way to not do the thing. It's how can we bring the joy, how can we find a way to make this aligned and to fit us so that we enjoy the challenge, so that we enjoy the process, because that is where the magic can happen in business happens, and that's where the income and impact is. Let me know if this is making sense. And that's also where we enjoy the process of something. But I think, again, our brain is wired to avoid pain and to seek pleasure and to save calories and to basically be a lazy motherfucker. And our brain wants to do things like hit the easy button in terms of, okay, I know that going to the gym will actually make me happy, but it doesn't really feel good to get up off this sofa, so I want to hit the easy button and be comfortable now. That's comfortable in what our brain wants to do, but have you noticed that never makes us feel happy, ever? And it's the same thing in business. Loving your business, feeling happy in business, often is doing the uncomfortable thing and moving through the challenge, and then just finding a way to make that align to you. So what we're not talking about, and this is where I think hustling and burnout comes from, is in the same context, then pushing into something that isn't aligned, doing things because we feel like we're supposed to, doing things because we're told we should, overworking because our ego, this again is a brain thing, because our ego says if I work hard, then I'm gonna get a gold star. That's the opposite of what we're talking about. That isn't happiness, that is pushing, that is hustling harder, that creates burnout. I'm on a super rant, you guys, please let me know if this is making sense. Here's just some more evidence around this to show you how true this is. When we then again talk about burnout, because I think sometimes again we hear this and it's like, okay, so Kim, you're saying that doing the work, showing up, having some challenge, having some discomfort, that's going to make me happy. And I'm saying yes. I'm also saying within that you get to find a way to make it feel good, because so often it's the perception, right? Our brain is wired to tell us that doesn't feel good. Our brain tells us ahead of time, before we're doing the action, that that thing doesn't feel good. Our brain says, I don't want to do this thing. I think it's going to be uncomfortable because you're not lazy. Your brain is lazy. It wants to save calories. It wants to do the easy thing. And so we think it's going to be not a great thing. But the trick is, it's all perception. It's tricking our brain into seeing if we can change our perception, then not only does taking action make us feel good, but then we can find ways to feel good within the process of what we're doing. Is this making, I feel like I'm throwing some big things out here, so let me know if that concept's making sense. I have like 45 other things I want to say around this, so let me pull up my notes. Let me know if you have questions while I'm talking about this. Being uncomfortable, taking action, doing things, having a challenge. These are all things that create happiness. This is also how we start to love our work, because again, this is how we start to get into flow. And I think sometimes the reason we don't love our work and that we aren't feeling happy is unintentionally we're choosing the thing that feels easy and comfortable, or what we think we're supposed to do, and there almost isn't enough. It's like there isn't enough meat, there isn't enough challenge in it, and so then we lack that satisfaction from our work afterwards. Here's an example for you. If I just went on vacation for 6 months and did nothing but eat pain au chocolat, my brain thinks that would be amazing. Like, who wouldn't want that? And I guarantee you, I would be so bored and miserable because it takes away everything that we actually need to thrive and feel good. And again, I think this is how we sabotage ourselves in business, because then in the moment, our brain is lying to us and telling us the perception that something that feels a little challenging or something we have to figure out doesn't feel good. And so we think we don't love our work, when it's actually leaning into that and finding a way to, like, okay, maybe in the moment, like I have a cold today. Like, my brain says, go lie in the bed. Like, that's going to feel way better. And like, maybe in the moment that would feel better, but actually right now I feel 10,000 times better than I did before getting on the live. Because that's just what my brain thinks. And in the moment, then being in the flow, this is work I love. It is challenging to think of the thoughts, to move through some discomfort, but that creates happiness. Thank you, Kelly, for the heart. I'm really hoping this makes sense. The other thing I want to share here within this concept is we're usually kind of wrong about what we think we want and what makes us happy. And hear me out on this, but this is something that's been really fascinating to me as I've grown in business. I think we think like pain au chocolat all day long is what's going to make us happy. And then you experience that and you're like, oh, no, I want like 2. And now I want some vegetables, because that doesn't actually feel good all the time. Sitting in comfort and what we think feels good all the time actually doesn't feel so fucking good. And it's the same thing with business. I think we think certain things are what are going to make us happy, or we think certain things are what we want, or we think we need certain things. And what's really fascinating is if you were actually to lean into that, let's just say you think checking out and not showing up and doing your marketing for a month would feel really good. I guarantee you, not doing anything after week 1, you'd be like, oh, I'm bored. This is like such a random example, but when I was still acting, I quit my paid the bill bar job because I was determined I was going to be a writer. It was like my thing. I made it like 3 weeks before I was miserable. I was so miserable and so bored, y'all, because I didn't have enough like structure for writing, and I didn't have enough to do that was work, not in hard work like pushing, but to fill me with purpose every day. And I was actually getting depressed. And I think that, again, is where we get it so twisted with loving your work or loving your business. I think so many of us think the quicker I can scale to retire myself out of business, or the quicker I can make a bunch of money and just check out, the quicker I'm going to be happier. And I think that's what causes us to cut corners or to sabotage ourselves, because we're doing things we don't actually like, that aren't aligned to our strengths, because we think that's the quick fix, versus that's not even the thing that's going to make most of us happy. Does that make sense? And I think the sooner we can realize that, the sooner we also open ourselves up to the freedom to give ourselves the space to do the things that are aligned, and to realize there's no rush to make 8 bags of money. I don't know why I said bags of money. I'm like carrying money over my backpack, or like to retire ourselves, because that's not even the goal, because that's not even the thing that's gonna make us happy. And suddenly then we create space to lean into the things that actually are aligned, that light us up. And y'all, that is ironically where the money and the success and the next level impact is. And suddenly then we're also detached from needing things, because we're not trying to grasp onto a bunch of stuff for comfort. We're like, cool, I'm leaning into this because I'm showing up, because I actually love the work, the actual work of my business and the process. And there's no rush. This is, again, let me know. You guys all are very quiet. I'm just seeing if we have any comments. And Instagram, thank you all for being here as well. Let me know if y'all are so quiet, and I know you're here, so let me know if this is all making sense. What did I want to say? I have one more idea on top of this that I want to add, but there was something I just wanted to add here. This is the example I was going to share here, because I think sometimes examples help these ideas land a little bit more. it's kind of hard if you hate the process of working in your business to grow your business. Like anything we resist persists, right? And what we focus on expands. So it's kind of tough if the actual process of your business, if you hate it, to grow your business, which is why loving your business is pretty important if you want to be able to make more money and to have a bigger impact and to grow. And to bring this concept kind of full circle, I'm part of a mastermind, and we were talking yesterday, and one of my friends and amazing people in the mastermind is in the middle of a launch, and she was talking about this idea that she used to resist launching, which you can imagine how, that isn't the most amazing thing, and if we're resisting launching in business, and how now suddenly she's realized when she's launching how that challenge of launching gives her so much growth and all of the challenges, and how she's fucking loving the challenges and the growth through that and the process of it, even though it's kind of hard. And that's what we're talking about here. So she's loving her business. She's loving launching. She's loving the process. It feels easy to show up and do the things she needs to do, even though it's hard and uncomfortable and there's a lot of growth and a lot of things to move through. And I think that's where the mindfuck part of it comes, because again, we hear business is easy, we should love our business, and we think that means I don't have to do anything and I just drink Mai Tais on the beach. When it's no. It's simple and easy in terms of what she has to do, and it feels easy now because she's embracing and loving the process of moving through the challenge and growing. Oh, they're so quiet. Let me know if that makes sense. All right, so the last thing here I want to share in terms of letting it be easy and loving our work and what this really means and why I think this is so important. Thank you for the hearts, Ursula. Does anyone else follow Mark Manson's work? I read his blogs once in a while. They're really great. He wrote the book with fuck in the title, Unfuck Yourself, I think. He has a great blog where he talks about the idea of the shit sandwich. Anyone read that blog? It's a good one. The concept of this blog is that in every business, in every industry, no matter how glamorous, there's always a shit sandwich you have to eat. I'm throwing out all the curse words today, but these aren't mine. They're Mark Manson's. We're blaming him. Meaning, it's really easy to glamorize. I think his example in the blog, it's been a while since I read it. I think his example is it's really easy to glamorize being a rock star, but you have to realize there's a shit sandwich even with being a rock star, and that is you're going to have to practice all the time. You're probably going to have to be on the road. I have friends who are in a band. They're in the road. They're living out of a van a lot. They have to travel. They're away from their wives, a fair amount of the time. That's the shit sandwich of being a rock star. And it's so easy from the outside looking in to think, I would love being a rock star. That would be amazing, because all we think about is the glory, happiness on the opposite side of the challenge, right? Being on stage and all of the adoring fans. We don't think about the shit sandwich, which is what we're talking about here. That's the challenge part. That's the flow part. That's the part we have to move through to get to be on stage. And so his whole idea is every business, every industry has this shit sandwich. So find the work that you're willing to eat the shit sandwich. And it sounds so gross. I think to bring it to what we're talking about today, it's not even find the work you're willing to eat the shit sandwich. I think it's more about what is the shit sandwich that actually for someone else seems like a shit sandwich, but for you, you fucking love it. And you find a way, this is all perspective, right? You find a way to have a perspective to enjoy those, what someone else might find shitty parts, because that's just business. However, if you can change your perspective to see those as opportunities for growth, or to see those as, oh my gosh, this is the part where I tap into flow and I actually love it and my happiness comes from the other side, it's no longer even a shit sandwich. It's just a challenging part, or a part that you wouldn't have thought you would have loved of your business. And I think this is so important to grasp onto, because otherwise we come into business and we think it's just going to be an escape from something that's going to magic fairy dust, make us super happy. And it's no. Your business doesn't make you happy. You make you happy by finding ways to love your business, by moving through those challenges, by finding ways to find the ease and flow and happiness on the other sides of the challenges. As soon as we sit back waiting, expecting our business to give that to us, that's when it's a shit sandwich. And that's when all we're doing in our business is eating shit sandwich. And we're I don't understand. People are talking about loving their business and work. This just feels like a grind. And this is why some people feel like they're hustling harder and burning out. And other people feel like they're taking aligned action and they just want to do more. Two people can seem like they're taking the same amount of action, but it's all what's underneath it that changes it. In fact, if you're burnt out, one of the things they've done studies that they'll have you do, you'd think the prescription would be to like sit back and take a week off and go on vacation. Adam Grant talks about this in, I think, Give and Take. They actually will have you do more, but do more of what's aligned and gives you something back. So if you're burnt out, they might prescribe that you go do more, add more to your plate, but go maybe volunteer. That's taking action, that's showing up, that's challenging, but it fulfills you in a different way. They're not saying go check out for a week and go on vacation, which is all. Ursula says yes, and the smiley face, thank you. And just seeing, I see a comment, I think. Oh, I'm not very good at this. Shaukya says, I don't think gymnasts become Olympic champions by not doing anything and by not loving what they're doing. Andrew, hi. Oh, I'm seeing these so late. Kelly says, and we can create shit sandwiches that don't exist if our mindset isn't in the right place. Shaukya, absolutely. That's such a perfect example. Shaukya's my mama, y'all. So hi, Mom. My dad, since it's my mom, my dad's a race car driver, so I'll use him as an example. He loves his work, and he has a really successful career. We could do, maybe we'll do a whole live stream on that, because I think there's a lot of great lessons there. And he didn't get to be one of the top in his industry by not loving his work, but he loves his work and still shows up. Like, there are days he will get up at 5 a.m. My dad's not a morning person. He doesn't love getting up at 5 a.m. That's maybe the shit sandwich, but he loves his work. He loves the process of what he's doing. He loves, it's like the launch thing, right? He loves what's on the other side of the shit sandwich of waking up at 5 a.m. And I think, like, and he didn't get to where he is in his business and to have the success he does and to be one of the top in the industry by hating the process the whole way. And like, well, if I just like hate it long enough, then I'm going to get to a place where I'm just going to like make a lot of money and people will give me a gold star. That doesn't happen. You never make it that far because you'll just sabotage yourself the whole way. And there's no happiness in that. Like, then you miss the whole point of creating your own business and doing creative work, right? The whole point is to enjoy it and to like it. And to what Kelly's saying is, and we can create shit sandwiches for ourselves that don't exist if our mindset isn't in the right place. Kelly, I love you. It's so true. So I'll read a quick passage from here. I bookmarked it because it speaks to this, because this is then bringing it back to what we're talking about with the shit sandwiches. This guy whose name I can't pronounce properly says, what I discovered was happiness is not something that happens. It's not the result of good fortune or random chance. It is not something that money can buy or power command. It does not depend on outside events, but rather on how we interpret them. Happiness, in fact, is a condition that must be prepared for, cultivated, and defended privately by each person. People who learn to control their inner experience will be able to determine the quality of their lives, which is as close to as any of us can come to being happy. That's mindset. That's what Kelly's talking about. That is being able to have the perception on our shit sandwich and enjoy it. And that's how we can love our business, even in the mundane part of it that is just a part of, like, there are just certain things we have to run in business. And I have a scaling thought on that. And if we're not cultivating and defending privately these thoughts and these perspectives, the outside world will tell you 1,000 shit sandwiches that you should be eating and why you should be miserable and why you should be unhappy and why you shouldn't like what you want. And it's really easy to create in our mind things that are making us miserable when what's actually happening is we're just choosing to make ourselves miserable. So Kelly, all the heck yeses. I'm going to read one more passage from this, if you all don't mind, because I think it's pretty good. That just goes to what we were talking about earlier. Because sometimes when there's someone really smart with a bunch of like letters after their name, it makes what I'm saying land a little bit different. And then I see another comment over here, which I'll read. Contrary to what we usually believe, moments like these, the best moments in our lives, are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times, although such experiences can also be enjoyable if we've worked hard to attain them. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Optimal experience is thus something that we make happen. I feel like this is everything, and this is everything we're not talking about enough. It's when we stretch our mind. It's when we stretch ourselves to the limit. That's when we feel fucking amazing afterwards. When we're scared of something and we show up and do it anyway. When we come up with a new idea, when we do the thing, that's when we feel amazing afterwards. When, for those of you who are athletes or athletic or work out, when you push yourself in a workout, in the moment, it is challenging AF and you feel amazing afterwards. If you think about some of the best moments in your life, I guarantee they're on the other side of something that's challenging. I guarantee it. And that is something we don't talk enough about when we talk about loving your business and letting it be easy. It's easy in that feels when it's in alignment and when we're making it simple. When it's not, what we're talking about when we say let it be easy is don't let your own brain complicate it, overcomplicate it, make it harder than it needs to be. Don't overwork because your ego needs to overwork to feel good. But stretching yourself and challenging yourself and working hard, not burning out, but doing the work and working hard in the way that is fulfilling, that's magic. That is happiness, and that's what creates business success, y'all. That does not, like, this really feels important. That does not mean working 1,000 hours a day. Like, I do not feel like I work hard at all. And I also feel like I stretch myself all the time. And that is hard work. I think that's a difference. Not working hard, but doing the hard work. All right, I see comments, and then I want to talk about the magic of scaling with all of this. Andrew says, hi, very late. We'll catch the replay too. Debbie says, happiness is internal. External things are the sprinkles on top. Absolutely, Debbie. And just like, it's the sprinkles on top. And I think so often too, the external things we think will make us happy, when we finally get them, we're like, oh, isn't that interesting? Like, those feel good if I'm happy. If I'm not happy, those things still don't feel good. Like, Paris was amazing because I felt amazing. If I had been in a shitty mood the whole time or hadn't been happy, like, it wouldn't have mattered how many croissants you had thrown at me. I would have probably been miserable. So just to what Debbie's saying, yes, happiness is internal. External things are the sprinkles on top, but it still ends up being the internal perception that makes us enjoy those. Debbie, I love you. Ursula says, alignment makes work easier, but it doesn't necessarily mean less. And hey, nice to see. I see a couple other faces on here. Absolutely. I think here yes, alignment makes work easier. And I think when we talk, again here, when we talk about let it be easy, how can you make it easy? I think what we really are thinking about is, how can we not make it hard on ourselves? How can we not create resistance for ourselves? How can we not self-sabotage? How can we not overcomplicate things? Most things can be very simple, but that doesn't mean that taking the aligned action, and aligned action I think is then within that finding what is aligned to us. What is my purpose? What lights me up? If we're talking about content, what's the way I want to show up and create content that feels good to me, and that is aligned to me, but that doesn't mean that creating the content takes any less time than for someone else, or it doesn't take effort or work, but it feels easy because I'm not making it harder on myself than I need it to be, or I'm not doing like 45 extra things to make myself feel like I'm being busy. Does that make sense in terms of what we're talking about there? So all the yeses to alignment, and seeing that alignment really, but like within alignment, we still have to show up, and that showing up isn't a bad thing. In fact, usually showing up is, if we're in alignment, like that's where a lot of our happiness and satisfaction comes from. And this is like such a side tangent, but this feels important too. Just because we can make things easy and simple doesn't mean that sometimes moving through things in the moment feels easy. And when we say let business be easy, and it's like strategy isn't that complicated and it gets to be easy, by no means does that mean like this is the easiest thing in the world to do. Like it's still challenging to move through the discomfort and to move through all the stuff and to put yourselves out there and to like show up, and to like it's technically easier in the moment for me to crawl into bed right now. But this is not difficult for me to do. Showing up on a live stream is easy in the moment. It's just easier to check out. Is that Hopefully I'm making sense. I'm like hoping I'm making sense today because I'm all over the place. Ursula says, exactly, it doesn't necessarily take less time. Yes, it doesn't necessarily take less time. However, it doesn't have to take a long time. And I think this is important too. When we get into this place where we're embracing the shit sandwich, and we're finding a way to love it, and we're embracing the challenge, and we're deciding that, like, yes, I actually love my work. I love the work part. I love the process part. I love the process of the challenge and the growth and the showing up every day to my business. And I'm going to detach a little bit from needing this to give me happiness, because I know I create my own happiness, and that comes on the other side of the challenge, of the goal, and like the process itself is what gives me happiness. The amazing thing is results tend to come a lot faster. A lot of times, the more we like need the external thing to give us happiness, the more we need the money to fulfill us, the more we need those results right now, the more we're feeling scarcity or feeling that hole we need to fill. Like the funny thing is, like, the longer it tends to take. And so the irony with all of this is, like, that's why it also starts to feel easier, right? Because then suddenly things are happening faster, but part of that is because we're also surrendering, we're detached a little bit while we're in the process of doing the thing and showing up. So hopefully that makes sense. This was the other little thing that I'm going to add on top, which I think is just kind of a fun part. Here's the amazing thing in business, and kind of in life anywhere, with all of the things and with the shit sandwiches, as you grow in business and as you embrace this, these are also the things you get to start hiring out. So I think what we want to be mindful of is not hearing this conversation and then deciding that that means we have to like love everything and do all the things in our business that don't serve us. Sometimes we have to have the certain, like, show up to do certain things in our business to grow it. And then sometimes we also get to a place where it's really interesting to take a look and say, oh, this is a shit sandwich, but, and here's the difference, this isn't a shit sandwich that challenges me. There's no growth in this. There's nothing in this that's allowing me to stretch myself, right? The happiness comes from the stretching, from expanding ourselves, from stretching our capacity of our mind or of our body. This action here doesn't do that for me, and I don't really enjoy it. Here's what's great about business. Then as you grow, those are the things to hire out, because those aren't then your zone of genius, and those aren't the things you love. It's not even that they're not in alignment. They might just be tasks that need to happen in your business, but I think that's a great place to then be able to see, cool, so this is the thing then that it's not even really serving my personal growth or my happiness, and this would be a great thing to hire out. So for me, for example, I don't love, a shit sandwich for me that I don't love is creating graphics for social media. And creating graphics for social media, that doesn't stretch me. There isn't a challenge in that. There isn't a goal in that where I feel like when I've done that, outside of just completing it because it needs to get done, none of the things that get me into a flow state or that create that happiness on the other side because I'm stretching and expanding come from creating graphics, which is great to know, because I know then that makes sense, and it's not in my zone of genius, that makes sense to hire that task out. We'll use babies as an example because my girlfriend and I were talking about this. Maybe with having kids, it's like part of the challenge. I haven't been pregnant, but I imagine being pregnant there's some discomfort and there's some challenge in that, but going through that process and then giving birth, like, that must be such an incredible experience and happiness, and like there's so much joy and there's so much like stretching of who you are as a human that goes through that process. And then maybe like when you have the baby, maybe there's certain things like changing diapers. I'm making this up. And so if you're at a place, like we can use this as a business, like maybe that's something you want to get some help with, and that's okay. And that's not something though that like by changing the diapers, you're like stretching your capacity and like challenging yourself and growing and connecting with your baby in a different level. I don't have a baby, so all the moms out there, if I'm totally wrong on this, maybe that's like the most amazing connecting thing ever and I'm totally wrong here. But trying to use an example outside of business, I think we can just start to see that within this concept, we want to be careful that we then don't, like, this is then how we start to get out of alignment, where we start to think, I now have to make myself like everything or do everything. And that's not what this conversation is. It's finding the joy and learning, like seeing that the happiness comes through that growth and that stretching. Does that make sense? Let's see if we have any other comments. Since I tend to see these late because I don't know how to use Facebook or Instagram, we're going to blame that on jet lag. Okay, I think I have 8,000 other notes, but I think y'all get it. And there's I probably got y'all with this. So if you have any questions before I hop off, let me know. But I will just put a little bow on this and recap this. I want everyone to build, grow, scale a business that you are wildly in love with and that makes you money. And finding the way to love the process is part of loving the work. Finding a way to love the actual work and to see that when we stretch ourselves, that's what we're talking about when we love our work, so we can get into that flow state, especially all y'all who are my creative, artistic, heart-centered, like my passion-driven type, like that flow state, if you've experienced it, like that is magic. That's like the drug we're chasing, right? That comes from loving your work. That also comes from showing up from the work, which is being focused and being in the zone, and from stretching ourselves and from stretching our capacity. And here's the thing, the more we can find that within our businesses and with our work and cultivate our businesses to allow us to have that, the easier it is to make more money and to have a bigger impact and to feel that happiness, because happiness, which is the whole point, right? Like that's why we're creating our business. Otherwise, it's way easier to get a 9-to-5 job. The whole point of that is the happiness, and happiness comes from what's on the other side of those goals and those challenges. And so then even within business, it's like continuing to set those goals, continuing to grow. You know, if you build your business, continuing to find new ways to elevate and to stretch yourself. Like that is, it's not only about making more money, which, you know, I'm all about, but that's how we find fulfillment, and that's how we continue to stay happy and love our work. And the last button I'll put on this is they've done studies, people who are retired, often the death rate goes up right after someone retires from their work. It's because of what we're talking about. As soon as you stop having those goals and those reasons to show up and those things that challenge you and that work, quite honestly, to go to, you'd think like you spend your whole life waiting to get retired, and then how sad is that we see that it's because we have it backwards. That's not actually, like, sitting around doing nothing isn't actually the thing that makes us happy and that fulfills us, and it's not even good for our longevity and for our health. So this is quite an important topic. All right, thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for, I see my Sarah. Nice to see you on here. I'm just wrapping up here. So I think this is just, again, take some time, think about this. I think this is such an important topic, and I think it also will keep, I see a comment. Hey Crystal. I think, again, it's just an important thing for us all to be mindful of, so that we're not, as Kelly said, creating our own shit sandwiches from our mindset. Geo Energy Marketing says so true. Thank you. I'm glad this resonates. And that's what I have for you all. Last thing I will say, for any of you who are looking for some support with this, to find a way to enjoy the process, create your own process that fits you, that is in alignment, that lights you up, that allows you to love the process of your business, that allows you to love your work and makes you fucking great, amazing money. Let's talk. I have a coaching spot that opened up. Someone had to put a pause on their coaching, so I have an unexpected spot that opened up. So I've had a wait list for a little while. So hit me up, book a discovery call. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to see if we're fit. I would love to help whoever my person is build, grow, scale your business, take it to the next level in a way that is in alignment, that you love, so that you can make more money doing what you love the way we're talking about here, in a way that feels easy, in a way that feels simple, but that also has you showing up for the things and moving through the discomfort and continuing to grow and continuing to stretch. So book a discovery call with me. All right, that's what I got for you. I love you all. I will see you next Tuesday. I will be less jet lagged then, and I'll have a new topic for you. I think we're gonna talk about launching. We'll see. All right, bye y'all.